and eyewitnesses who could have provided their perspective, because now there were only 4 survivors still alive. But what I tell them is, had it not been for my grandfather's diary, we would never have been able to make this film. And among the other details that we discovered in his diary was the address of the house. He left that, number 4 Street of Our Lady, and that enabled us to go back and find that house, which was instrumental to making this movie. Oh, and I want to say that one of the survivors is with us here today. If you notice, some of the film was shot in Orlando, Florida, and Sam Kram, one of the 4 children survivors, the one who was hidden under the kitchen floor, is with us here today.
Sam, can we get you to come up to the, can we get you to come up to the stage? Thank you so much, Sam.
Question. How long were you in production?
It took us, I don't know if I can't see.
How long
back
were you
here.
in production?
We worked on the film for about 2.5 years. A lot of the time was spent raising money to get everything together and reaching out and trying to find everyone and make a plan. Once we had the financing in place, we were able to take everyone back to Ukraine and then come back and spend some time putting it together and wrapping it up.
Who provided the most money?
We got money from many people. We got checks for $5 and we got checks for $10,000. So we got from foundations. All 3 filmmakers are Penn State University faculty members. We got money from the university. We got money from Penn State alum, from Jewish foundations, from human rights foundations, from a whole host of organizations and individuals.
Thank you.
Did you grow up knowing about the diary? And when did you really start getting involved with the diary?
I grew up knowing the story from as far back as I can remember. I only remember knowing about the diary when my grandfather was much older, in his 90s, and he moved in with my family. And I guess he had it stored away in a drawer or something for many years. But then when his mind started going, what he liked doing most of all was sitting in a chair and reading that diary. That's when we started noticing that he had kept it. He never really talked about it beforehand. Yes?
I have 2 questions. One is, what was the reception you got in SoCal when you got back? And the second question is, did you really believe the people's stories to kind of also be saying, yeah, we knew you, they were there, we just didn't tell anybody?
Your first question, what kind of reception did we get in SoCal? Well, that was a big if in this whole project. When we figured out where the house was, the big question was, would they open the door and let us in? Because it wasn't clear that the people who lived in that house would cooperate with us. And so we didn't know really till about a week before we got there. We had a researcher in Ukraine who contacted them. They did not know anything about the story because they had only been living in that house for 10 years. But they welcomed us with open arms. They gave us access to that house 24 hours a day for the 8 days that we were there. And you know, it was a bit of the small consolation we had. I mean, it was terrible that Francesca Holomayova, after all the good she did, was eventually lost her house and had to flee. But at least we knew that there were people who lived in that house who really continued her tradition of the open door and hospitality. And your second question, remind me?
And the second question is, when you were talking to several local people,
oh, the locals.
Contrasted with the guy who said, you know, they kind of all said we knew about it, and he said, well, they really had all known about it.
Right. Well, one guy said nobody knew. The other woman said everybody knew. And you know what? We don't know.
I also think that's a part of history. People having their own memory of something, and we were relatively open to that, like not wanting to tell just one part of that story, but letting everyone tell us what they remember, what they heard. That was kind of a nice
juxtaposition.
Yeah. So there isn't just one way to tell this story. Of course, we have the way that we put it together in the film, but the people who are in the film, including Sam here, they all got to share their perspective.